Hi divers, Alec, Peirce, Scuba. Again with another tech tip, and I'm here at the AquaSub Scuba Diving Center. Yeah, it's a great little place here, and they do good service. Specifically, I want to talk about overfills. And the reason we're talking about overfills today is very simple. We just recently did a video on how to fill your scuba tank properly. But in some of the comments to that video were interesting. And one of the comments, because we did talk about making sure you get a good fill, meaning in this case, an 80 cubic foot, 3,000 PSI. How do you know that you got 3,000 PSI? Some divers get very upset if they don't get 3,000. I think they're paying for air fills by the PSI. No, you're not. You're paying for an air fill. You're not paying for the air. The air is free. Dive store owners steal that from the outside. Don't mention that to anybody. We'll have to start paying for it. But they steal that. What you're paying for is the $50,000 compressor, the cascade system, the fill station, the purification system, the 4 annual air tests every year. You're paying for his expertise, his time. That's what you're paying for. So if you think that $5 to $10 is too much for an air fill, stop and think about it for just a minute. The heck was that, Kevin? Anyway, however, one of the divers in there mentioned that what his local dive store does is they overfill the tanks. Yeah, they fill the tanks to, what did he say, 3,500 PSI, you see? And then when they cool down, it comes out close to 3,000. No, overfills are not good. It doesn't matter if it's a pony bottle or your standard 80 cubic foot or an old steel. Doesn't matter. Overfills are not good. You should not allow your dive store to overfill your tank. Now, if you don't allow them to do that, you run a couple of risks. Number one risk, in order to get a decent fill, it takes time. So if you go into a dive store and you've got 5 minutes to get a fill, you're not going to get a good fill. It'll be 3,000 PSI when he gives it to you, but it won't be 3,000 PSI an hour later, and it sure won't be 3,000 PSI when you jump in the cold water, because when you fill the tank, it gets hot. The air gets hot. And then when it cools, the pressure drops, just the way it is. So that's the first disadvantage. The second disadvantage, if you go in and you've got 5 minutes, is that it's hard on the tank. A fast fill, particularly an overfill, is very, very hard on the tank. We're going to do a video, probably quite soon, on hydrostatic tests. We did a video a little while ago about visual tests, because some of these things are a little mysterious, you know. Dive store owners, sometimes they make them mysterious so that you don't know what they're talking about or doing. So we did a complete visual examination of the tank. If you haven't seen that video, just go back a little bit. And we're going to do one on hydrostatic tests. So you'll actually see a tank being hydrostatically tested. So you'll understand what happens. And let me tell you now in advance that the hydrostatic test, what is commonly called the pressure test, which is inaccurate, it's not a good description, is not testing for the strength of the metal. It's not testing for the pressure rating of the metal. It tests one thing only: elasticity. That's right. This aluminum or steel tank, no matter what you have, that material stretches. It has elasticity. It stretches and shrinks, stretches and shrinks. And the hydrostatic tests test the elasticity remaining in that used tank. If the tank does not have any elasticity from being stretched and shrunk too many times, if it's lost its elasticity, the next fill, it won't stretch. It'll blow up. That's right. It has to stretch. It's the nature of the process. That's what hydrostatic test does. And when you get your tank overfilled, you actually stretch the tank too much and reduce its usable life. And third reason, it's illegal. Just that simple. If the test station if the fill station operator had read his book, read about it, then he would know that overfilling a tank is illegal by all standards, by all the agency training standards, Paddy Novi and so on, by the test standards, by TSSA here in Canada, by CSA and DOT in the United States. Overfills are illegal. Now, I'll be honest with you, it happens all the time. I don't know if anybody's ever got charged, although it's possible, but the fact remains it's illegal. So, overfills. This chap mentioned to me that they fill his tank to 3,500, and then an hour, 2 hours, or even the water, he ends up with maybe 28, 29, or 3,000 psi. And he loves that. He doesn't feel as if he's being ripped off. No, not good. Not good for the tank, not good for the diver, not good for the fill station operator. The safety valve on these tanks is rated for 3,700. If it's a hot day, it gives it a hot fill, a quick fill. You can get very close to that. That safety disc is rated for 3,700, which means it can blow anywhere from 35 to 39. It's not exact. I've seen these blow just during a normal fill process. There's lots of reasons why not. How do you get a good fill? It takes time. It's that simple. That's why you can't take your tank into a dive store and expect to get a good fill in 5 minutes. Now, as you saw when you check my filling a tank properly, you'll know, like, talk about this here as well. So you take your tank in, and you have two choices. You either go for a coffee, and you tell the dive store owner, I'll be back in a half an hour, 35 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe grab a bit of lunch, and pick my tank up. Or you leave it. Say, I'll pick it up before closing, or I'll pick it up tomorrow morning. Most dive stores don't mind if you do that. In fact, they like it. That means that they can take their time and make sure your tank is filled properly. And when you come in later that day or the next morning, it's filled, ready to go, cooled. They might even want to top it up to be sure it's right at 3,000 psi. And you go with a full tank. Dive store owner's happy, you're happy, nobody's life has been put in danger, your tank is happy too. So that's what you need to do. The dive store owner will fill the tank to 3,000 psi, then he'll let it cool 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. Then he'll top it up. It's probably sunk back down to 2,500. He'll top it back up to 3,000 psi. Let it cool again, 15, 20 minutes. Now to be down to maybe 27, maybe 28, he'll top it back up. Now the tank will still be warm. It should really sit for an hour. I'm not saying that a tank fill takes an hour, but if you want a good fill, it takes time. And then eventually you'll have it at room temperature, 3,000 psi. That's proper, it's legal, it's good for the tank, you've got a good fill. Now one last thing. It was 3,000 psi, cool, room temperature when it left the store. What's the pressure going to be when you jump into the water off Catalina Island, or in one of the Great Lakes, or in the Northeast states? What's the temperature going to be? What's the pressure going to be? Right, it's going to go down. You can't avoid that. You can't avoid it. The answer is not overfilling. No, not overfilling. Anyway, a couple of thoughts about it. Send me some more comments. Let me know what your dive stores are doing. And maybe you have some ideas on how to get a good fill. That's how it should be done anyway. Okay, guys, there you go. Overfilling tanks, bad. Alec, Peirce, Scuba. Talk to you again real soon.